Because if your prayer is you talking to God, your intuition is God talking to you. It's God talking to you. It's the presence of higher frequencies and higher energy saying to you, listen to me, listen to me, pay attention. There's an accident coming. Slow down. That person in front of you who's going slow, thank them for slowing you down. Because if you would have gone around them, you'd have had a head-on collision. Or there's somebody waiting up there to give you a ticket. How many times have you wanted to get around somebody, you want to get around, and you say, oh well, and you stay, and then you look up there, and there's somebody sitting up there with one of those little ticket guns, ready to hand you a ticket from a radar reading. That person was put in front of you to slow you down. And it's not an accident. Now, here's the weirdest. I'm giving a talk the next day on you don't have to have accidents. It's 5 o'clock in the morning and I'm out running. And while I'm out running, I trip over a curb that someone placed in the middle of the road. I don't know how they did it, but during the middle of the night, they raised the sidewalk this much. At least that's the way it seemed to me, because it had never been there before. It was out in front of my own home. And all of a sudden, I'm like this, and I go into that slowed down time thing I was talking about before, and I see, but I was sprinting, because the last 3 or 4 minutes of my run, I usually sprint. And I'm sprinting, and I hit that thing, and I'm going very fast, and it's all concrete, asphalt. And I see that I am about to land my head on it, and I can see it in my arm and my side and my face, and I'm tumbling on the cement at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I get up, and I finish my run, and I walk into the house, and my wife thinks that I've been attacked by a polar bear. Because that's how I looked. Blood down my face, scabs, were going to be forming, and I'm giving a talk the next day on how to avoid having accidents and moving into higher consciousness, all right? So when I was giving the talk and I got to this point, and then I started pointing out all of the things, on my hips and my legs and then over here and my face and so on. And I said to them, look, I was at 100,000 cycles per second. I was really connected to spirit while I was running. I had been meditating. And then we have been having a problem with one of our daughters who has been taking a different path in her life than what has been comfortable for us. And she has experimented with drugs and drinking and has had a head-on collision and had to be cut out of a car, and she now had gone back into some more of that kind of behavior when we thought that that was past us. And I was running, and I was thinking about her and worried about her and consumed with fear for her. And when I went into that fear mode and I got very, very frightened and very upset and very hurt, is when I tripped over that thing. And when you leave 100,000, 80,000, 70, and you move into these lower frequencies, and accidents occur when you shift back into the place where there are accidents at 20,000 cycles per second. If you can sense yourself in fear, in stress, in shame, in anxiety, in all of these kinds of awarenesses, and move out of them and get yourself back to God, to spirit, to love, to higher and faster energy, you can avoid all of these things. And when they happen, again, take responsibility for them without guilt. Not going around telling myself, I had this accident and I'm being punished and all of that. No. But that I now have the results in my body of this action, and I'm taking responsibility for getting rid of it. And I can't take responsibility for getting rid of it unless I take responsibility for having it. Not with guilt, but with your sense of everything that happens to me, I have something to learn from. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you for all of these struggles and tough times and accidents to remind me to move and stay in a higher place. The lowest frequencies are the frequencies that we call solid. And as we move out of the solid frequencies, remember that our eyes, our ears, these are the senses that pick up the energy and give us the information. As we move beyond the senses or into the higher senses like sound and light, we're moving into faster energies. So we've got solid, and then we've got this intermediate dimension called sound, and then we've got light, and then ultimately we move into the very fastest and highest frequencies of all, called spirit. And these very high and very fast frequencies are energies. And they are accessed by using your intuition and your insight, and largely through meditation and getting quiet and making conscious contact with God.
When you are in rapport with that from which you were intended, when you are in a state of creativity, a state of kindness, a state of love, a state of beauty, a state of receptivity, a state of abundance, when you are in those states of consciousness, you have joined the field from which you originated, and intention and you have become synonymous. And anything that you put your attention on with that rapport has to materialize into the physical world. It has to, because that's how everything is created. And any moment in your life in which you are in a state of anger, hatred, or fear, grief, or anything that is not what the field from which you originally came is like, is a moment in which what you want to attract into your life is impossible. You have a choice. You can either be right and live by your ego, or you can be kind. You can either be angry or you can be love. And at every moment, in 10 Secrets for Success, the 10th secret says, wisdom is avoiding every thought that weakens you. Back in the 18th century, there was a practice in the world called slavery going on. And there was a man named John Newton who was 22 years old, and he was a slave captain, ship captain. And he was bringing a load of human cargo from Senegal in West Africa to South Carolina, 125 human beings, to be sold into slavery in this hideous and nefarious practice that was so widespread in the 18th and early 19th centuries in the world. And John Newton was in the midst of a storm, and he thought he was going to die, and he was going to lose his life and the lives of all of the people on this cargo in the ship. And he took out an envelope, and on this envelope he wrote down the words to a song. He said, "I once was lost, and now I'm found." It's in a moment that we call an epiphany, a moment in which we reach something called siddhi consciousness, a satori, they call it in Japanese, a satori, which is an instant awakening. And he realized in that moment, as he was writing these words to this song down on the back of this envelope, that what he was doing was in violation of the universal mind from which he originated, that it was against the laws of the universe to treat any other human being or any other creatures of life. Now the storm passed, and he survived, but he looked on that piece of paper that he had written these words on, and he turned his ship around, and he went back to Africa, and he released the 125 people that he had in those holds, and he went back to England, and for the next 55 years, until his 77th birthday, he became the most ardent abolitionist in the world, speaking out against the evils of slavery. In one instant, in Zen Buddhism, they say when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. When you have that level of readiness, whatever you need, as it says in A Course in Miracles, if you knew who walked beside you at all times on this path that you have chosen, you could never experience fear or doubt again. It would never be there for you. For those of you who've decided to quit smoking, it will be easy because you will have guidance there for you at every moment that you ever are tempted to go back, or whatever it is that you want to attract into your life. And the words to that song became perhaps the most spiritual song ever recorded. It's called Amazing Grace. I once was lost, and now I'm found. And it was grace that taught my heart to feel. It was grace. It was God. It was returning to source that turned everything around. The problem for most people, it has been my experience, is that they have been raised to believe in what they can't do. And it's a very simple prospect to change that, yet most people never do. And it's one of the reasons why people are not very good at attracting into their life what they would like to have, whatever it might be, at any level. And I'm talking about from the very highest levels of miracles and healings and attracting abundance into your life to getting a job, to having relationships, the right person show up in your life. Anything that you can put your thoughts on or your attention on. I suggest the reason that people don't get the things that they would like to have in their life is because of that very simple principle that they are putting their thoughts or their attention or their energy on what they can't have or what's impossible. And it's a very simple paradigm for me. In the scriptures, there's a line that says, as a man thinketh, so is he. As we think, so shall we be. What we think about is what we become, and so on. It's endless. Emerson's notion that the ancestor to every action is a thought, that everything began with a thought. And it's true of everything that you can think of in your life. Just look at what you're wearing on your feet right now. Somebody had to think about those shoes. Look at the chair that you're sitting on. Just wherever you are, just gaze around and realize that it all started with an idea, with a thought. As St. Paul put it in the New Testament, that which is seen hath not come from that which doth appear. That is, the source of everything in the world is not in the world itself. It's in something invisible, something imaginary, something that is formless, something that has no boundaries, and that is the world of thought, the world of ideas. And if you can just accept that premise that what you think about is what expands, then if your thoughts are on what you can't do, or if your thoughts are on what you dislike, or if your thoughts are on what always has been, or if your thoughts are on what other people expect of you, and even if you despise all of that, and even if you find a lot of fault with that, and if you're very angry about all of that, about the way things always are, or always have been, rather, or the way things used to be. If your energy and your thoughts are on those things that you dislike, then you will attract more of what you dislike into your life. And it's almost as if it's a law of the universe. And that highly functioning people, one of the things that I learned from one of my great mentors, Abraham Maslow, many, many years ago as a doctoral student, is that when someone comes to you and they're looking for help of any kind, never place more than a few moments' attention on the problem. Because if your thoughts are always on, and what you're talking about is always on what is wrong, and what the problem is, you will become an enabler to that person to continue to manifest more of what is wrong and the problem in their life. And that highly functioning people, self-actualizing people that Maslow called them, were people who didn't think about what is, not even what is. And just notice in your life, as you think about this principle of having a mind that is open to everything, think about how many people you run into every day whose thoughts are on the circumstances of their life and who talk about the circumstances of their life. This is what's wrong. This is what I don't have. This is something that I can't seem to get right. I keep having the wrong things show up. We don't have any money. We don't have the right friends. I don't like the way my spouse treats me. My children are always this. Whatever. It's this endless inventory of things that people's minds are occupied with that are on what is. And if you want to know about self-actualization, you have to learn how to take your thoughts off of what is and onto what you intend to manifest with passion. You have to make that shift so that every time you are having a thought that is based upon the circumstances of your life, what always has been, what used to be, or whatever, you shift it. And you make the picture in your mind shift onto something that you intend to create or manifest into your life. So having a mind that is open to everything and attached to nothing is a mind. This came from a man who wrote back in the 10th century in the dialogues of Tilopa and his discourses. And he was a Vedantic scholar who lived in India over 1,000 years ago. And he suggested then in those discourses that a mind that is open to everything is one that has the potential for attracting everything into its life. And a person who doesn't have a mind that is open to everything will attract exactly what it is that they have their attention on. So one of the things that we have to do to create a mind that is open to everything is to look at what it is that we believe is not possible. And then, if you will, rewrite your agreement with reality. Literally rewrite it. And have it shift.
Think of the people you know who give love in response to negative energy that's directed their way. There aren't very many people who respond lovingly in that situation. The ones who do are able to do so because they have love to give away. They know that it's impossible to give away what they don't have, and they've gone that extra mile to acquire what it is that they want to both attract and give away. If love and joy are what you want to give and receive, then remember that you can't give away what you don't have, but you can change your life by changing what's inside, if you're willing to go that extra mile. Changing what's inside. Consider the following concept of your inner reality. Your thoughts create your reality because your thoughts determine how you respond to situations in your daily life. Those responses are the energy you have inside of you to give away. If you feel anger, it's because you have anger energy in your body. Like everything in our universe, your thoughts are a form of energy. Everything that you feel and experience is the result of what I call attractor energies. This means that you get back what you put out into the world. Thus, what you've attracted to you is what you have to give away to others. Low energy attracts low energy. Some of the low energy thoughts are anger, hate, shame, guilt, fear. Not only do they weaken you, but they attract more of the same. By changing your inner thoughts to the higher frequencies of love, harmony, kindness, peace, and joy, you'll attract more of the same, and you'll have those higher energies to give away. These higher and faster frequencies that empower you will automatically nullify and dissipate the lower energies in the same way that the presence of light makes darkness disappear. Loving and respecting yourself. By becoming more loving toward yourself, you will attract more of the higher, faster energies and begin to change what's inside you. In your thoughts, cultivate an inner voice and attitude that's 100% of the time for you. Imagine an aspect of yourself that only supports and loves you. You might schedule a certain time of the day when that's the only thought that you allow yourself to pay attention to. Gradually, this attitude will extend to other people, even if you can only do it for a minute or two. You'll begin to receive this energy back and ultimately be able to send thoughts of love and joy to everyone and everything in your world. Notice when your thoughts drift into the lower energy of ridicule or hate or guilt, and change the thought at the very moment if it's at all possible. If you're unable to change the thought, then at least love yourself for what you did do, that is, for noticing. Make a pact to remind yourself often of this secret of not being able to give away anything that you don't have. Then work on your personal program of self-love, self-respect, and self-empowerment, and create a huge inventory of what you wish to give away. One of the lessons I continued to learn and practice is that the universe responds with the same energy that we send out. If you attract a lot of people who wish to take advantage of you, you need to consider what you're doing to attract victimizers into your life. If you run into anger a lot, explore the angry thoughts you have inside of you. If your consciousness is a gimme, gimme, gimme energy, you'll attract all manner of demanding energies into your life. You know if this is true by the number of deadlines not being met, or demanding bosses or customers you encounter, and the feeling of being a victim. Send out gimme, gimme, gimme energy to the universe, and it will do the very same to you in return. If what you give is self-respect and self-love, the universe, via the attractor energy, will return the love and respect you've been radiating. It's really so simple. You can't give away what you don't have. The irony of giving. If you wanted to give a dozen oranges to your neighbor as an expression of love, you obviously would need to be in possession of 12 oranges. If you intended to purchase a new automobile for your parents to show your gratitude to them for putting you through medical school, naturally you'd need to have the funds to do so. Likewise, you can't give love away to others if you don't have any for yourself. You can't show respect for others if you lack self-respect. You can't give happiness away if you feel unhappy. And of course, the reverse is true. You can only give away what you do have. And all that you're giving away each and every day are items from your own personal inventory. If you give away hatred, it's because you've stored up hatred inside of you to give it away. If you give away misery, it's because you have a ready supply available from which to select and to distribute. This concept is simplified by a description of squeezing an orange. When you squeeze an orange, you'll always get orange juice to come out. This is true regardless of who does the squeezing, what time of day you squeeze, what instrument you use to squeeze, or what circumstances surround the orange squeezing. What comes out is what's inside. The same logic applies to you. When someone squeezes you in some way that puts pressure on you, or says something unflattering or critical, and out of you comes anger and hatred and bitterness and tension, depression or anxiety, it's because that's what's inside. The irony is that you can't give away what you don't have because you're always giving away what you do have. If you want to move into the realm of purpose by giving and serving others, ask yourself, what do I have inside? And why have I chosen to store these kinds of energies in me to give away to others?
Part of me really knows, more than just believes, but knows that when you're born and when you show up here, your work shows up here with you. It's placed in your heart. And too often we ignore it in the name of fulfilling a destiny that has been laid out for us by other people and so on. So these people that I will be referring to, what I call ancient wisdom, this ancient wisdom came from people who felt something very profound in their hearts that they absolutely knew that they had to express. And it's almost as if you have to find within yourself what it is that you know you are here for and follow that instinct independent of what anybody else out there might think about it, without being objectionable and nasty and recalcitrant and so on, but still having within you this knowing that I have certain music that I have to play. I have certain things that I have to do. And I feel it deeply, and I feel connected to that. And not allowing myself to do it means that I might spend that time. I might get to that place at the end of my life and say, what if it's been wrong? What if I didn't listen to that inner voice? An ancient teacher, his name is Patanjali. And Patanjali is known in the ancient world 1 to 3 centuries before the birth of Christ. There's no actual date of actual record of his birth and death. And he was the one who wrote the original Yoga Sutras and wrote a wonderful book that I immersed myself in a few years back called How to Know God. And Patanjali, one of the things that he said to these people, now remember, we're talking about something that's going back maybe 3,500 years or more. And here was this great teacher in the ancient world. And this is one of the things that he said. When you are inspired, the word inspired comes from in spirit. I don't know if you've ever noticed that when you're truly inspired in your life, that is, when you're doing what you know you're here for, everything seems to work. The right people show up. You don't worry about being hungry. You don't worry about being tired. You're not concerned with whether or not anybody's going to like it or not. When you're truly inspired, that is, whether it's cooking or being with your children or writing or composing music or filling out tax forms, whatever it might be, when you feel inspired, everything works. And the reason that everything works is because you have left the material, the physical world, the world of the ego, and you've moved into the world of spirit. And when you move into the world of spirit, into that invisible world, you get connected. And inspiration means inspired.
When you are inspired, all your thoughts break their bonds. As I explained earlier, being inspired is equivalent to being back in spirit. Before we showed up in form, our mind and the mind of God were synonymous, which means that we were free from the bonds of the ego mind. This is simply how the world of spirit works. It's impossible to have limiting boundaries or self-imposed shackles placed on us. When we're in harmony with the mind of God, we simply don't have thoughts that tell us we can't accomplish something. After all, our thoughts are of a higher energy. Returning to spirit results in a grand sense of being in tune with our uniquely divine purpose. Just imagine being able to go on and on for hours at a time without experiencing fatigue or hunger or thirst or mental exhaustion, all thanks to one factor, the willingness to be back in spirit. When you are inspired, your mind transcends limitations. When we're inspired, we remember that God is always in us and we're always in God. So we're incapable of thinking limited thoughts. We're transcendent. We've gone beyond the world of boundaries and entered a space of creative knowing. In other words, we surrender. We put ourselves under the guidance and control of our purposeful force. When you are inspired, your consciousness expands in every direction. When we're in spirit, every direction is possible for us at every moment because our consciousness happens within our mind. Now, this inner world of ours, reunited with its originating essence, doesn't think in only one direction. Rather, it allows all possibilities. Our consciousness is in the absolute state of allowing. All resistance in the form of thoughts is non-existence. When you are inspired, dormant forces, faculties, and talents become alive. These dormant forces will come to all of us. They're actually alive and well and have been working on our behalf for as long as we've been here. Yet they appear to be dead to some because they've left behind their divine purpose, which we decided on long before we ever took on the insane ego. When you're inspired, you discover yourself to be a greater person by far than you ever dreamed yourself to be. The act of being inspired by some great purpose allows us to feel the essence of a spiritual being having a human experience, rather than the other way around. Patanjali suggests that we could never even dream of our greatness because we've been imprisoned by our beliefs about who we are. We bought into the idea that we were limited in our ability to create an all-encompassing life, and we were certain that we had no choice in our own destiny. We defended our need to acquire more and to live a scarcity consciousness in which we competed with everyone else for a meager slice of the whole pie. All of these imprisoning thoughts result when we're not guided by spirit. Moving into a state of inspiration removes all of those restraining ideas. As Patanjali notes, we'll discover someone we couldn't imagine because we were incarcerated in ego's jail, imprisoned by what we now recognize from our inspired viewpoint as an illusion. We need to awaken from the bad dream that has stupefied us in the fog of ego and live from the blissful perspective offered by being in spirit.